So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming along to today's self-advocacy and self-directed support session. So first off, just a bit of an introduction and overview. I'm Avril McLean. I am the Project and Participation Senior Practitioner at Action for ME. And I'll let my colleague Nikki introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Nikki and I'm an Advocacy Officer with Action for ME.
So there's only a couple of people here at the moment, so I don't want to start getting into the session until we allow people time to come in. So we'll wait a couple of minutes before we kick off in case there's some other people, because there's still more than half the people who said that we come along who haven't come along yet. So that's people starting to come in now. And this session is being recorded. So I think I'll just start now that we've got some more people in. So thanks very much for coming along. We're looking at 3 areas today: self-directed support, self-advocacy, and some information on carers, because these all interlinked, because very often carers are advocating for the person they're caring for, and they can also access self-directed support. So we'll have an hour session, and then we'll have half an hour for questions and answers where it won't be recorded. This session now is being recorded. So if you want to use the chat to let us know if there's anything that you need the pace to slow down, you want to tell us something, that you need a break, let us know through the chat and put any questions you have in the questions and answers. And Nikki and I will do the best that we can to answer any questions that you have. So one of the first things I'm going to say is this is what we're covering today: the self-advocacy, self-directed support, some information on carers, and an option to have question and answer at the end. So because it's a short overview of these areas, then we're not able to cover some things. We can't answer questions which are very detailed or specific to your personal circumstances, and we can't give advice. So self-advocacy, what is it? It's the action of representing yourself or your views or interests. And that involves a number of different things. It might be speaking up for yourself, getting your voice heard effectively, and sometimes that takes a bit of thinking about. It also means that you need to be aware of your legal rights and entitlements, because sometimes these are the things that help people to get the things that they need to change. You also need to know what you want to achieve so that you can be clear in telling other people what it is that you want to advocate on your own behalf. So this can take a lot of time and energy. So some of the things that are involved in that are researching and gathering information. And that might be about thinking about what do you need, what might help you fulfill your needs, what things do you need to know about what's available. So then you can, once you've done the research and gathering information, then you can consider the options that are available to you. And so that's why the research and gathering information is very important, because you need to make yourself aware of as many options as possible. And the next step is making an informed choice. And that might be about weighing up the benefits of this option, but also the costs, because everything has a good and a bad side. So it's weighing up, is this going to give me more benefit than cost? And that's why you need so much information and consideration, because you want to make sure that when you make a choice, it's the best decision for you and your particular circumstances. So that does take a bit of time. And really, one of the ways to make sure that you do have a good advocacy case is to make sure that it's a legal right or an entitlement. If it's just your individual preference, it might be that you're in a house and you really don't like where you're living. So that is your individual preference. If it in some way doesn't meet your mobility needs, then there might be a case for it getting covered for legislation and you being able to make a case for getting to another house. So communication is key when you're working in this sort of area, because if you want to tell people about what you need, then you need to be clear about it yourself and consider what are the best ways of doing that. One of the things that you might need to consider if you're living with something like ME is, what adjustments do you need? Do you need people to give you the information that you need to consider well in advance? If you're applying for self-directed support, you may need to have lots of thinking about it, thinking about what might be right for you. There might be adjustments in the time that you respond. It might be looking at what form of communication is best for you. Is it email? Is it post? Is it telephone? And because you might be living with ME or supporting someone who's living with ME, it's about planning ahead so that you're not just looking at the advocating for yourself or for someone else, but you're looking at managing the other daily activities you have and the other priorities in your life. So when you're thinking about advocating for yourself, then you need to think about pacing your activity. What can you do? How can you pace yourself to make sure that you don't impact your health and have a relapse, and you're able to take the action that you want? So many people use chunking, so they do a bit of activity around advocating for themselves, maybe they research and then they leave it for a while and rest. But of course, timing might be significant. If you're wanting to complain about something, it might have a specific timeline, and that's where you might need to plan and prioritise, because if you want your complaint to be successful, you need to submit your information in time to get it taken on board by the process. So because we've only got a short time to cover everything in this session, I'm signposting people to some guides. I said communication was key around advocacy, and this guide by Carers UK, Being Heard, a self-advocacy guide for carers, would be useful for anyone to think about how they communicate, how they manage their emotions when they're communicating, because that can be a huge part of communication, is being able to regulate yourself and not getting upset. Because of course, thinking about things that you need and maybe not getting the response you want can lead to people having a lot of emotions, which, you know, generate conflict. So it's about thinking in advance, how you're going to plan what you say, how you're going to manage your responses, possibly in the face of getting a response that you don't like. So I really recommend that guide. We also have a Nothing About ME Without Me, which is a self-advocacy resource. And we're really updating that at the moment, but it still has quite a lot of useful information within it. So I'd recommend looking at that. Another document that might be useful when you're advocating on your own behalf with other professionals is our This Is Me template, which is a bit of information on ME, what is the condition, because there is a lot of misunderstanding about it. So then you can tell people, So I have some signposting later on about trustworthy sources of information, and if there's anything specific that people want around that, then I can come back and look at that later if there's a particular area, because there is some organisations that people can contact. So this is ME template can be filled out with information which is particular to you so that you can inform people, this is how ME impacts me. This is what I need from other people to communicate with them, or it might be things that you need to support yourself. Self-advocacy is very hard and takes a lot of time and energy, and sometimes we might want support. So within Scotland, there is the Scottish Independent Advocacy Alliance, and there is a place on their website where people can search for an independent advocate who may be able to support them. Of course, like many other things, this might be a postcode lottery where it might not be present in many areas, or it might be for specific groups of people like older people or people with a mental health condition. But it might always be useful to just check out and see if there is an advocacy organisation local to you if you are thinking of advocating on something. So I'm now going to speak a bit about self-directed support, and of course it's only a quick overview. Yes, Nikki?
There's a question in the Q&A.
Yep, I'll have a wee look. Yes, I said that I'd have a look at any websites. There is some on this presentation, but I will, if there's a specific area that people want to raise in the Q&A, then we can. What's the specific? So we will cover some of the specific areas of support that later on that we can look at what self-directed support can be used for people to buy or get someone else to buy in. So self-directed support is for anyone in Scotland who needs social care services or support, and that can be children, adults and unpaid carers. And this is underpinned by an act, the Social Care Self-Directed Scotland Support Act 2013. And that is quite some time ago, but there is still patchy take-up of self-directed support, which is one of the reasons we're holding this webinar, just to let people know it's out there and you can apply for it. So people should be supported to identify what matters to them, and that would be through conversations, and I will speak more about the process of applying later on, so that they can think about what they want to achieve with this support, because it's very much about you as an individual, thinking about what are your personal outcomes, what do you want to achieve for yourself. And so this Act places a duty on the local authority to conduct an assessment of the needs of the person applying in collaboration with the person applying, so that they're really part of the process and can inform what they want in their life and what might be reasonable options for them, and also the relevant individuals involved in the person's life. And these might be people providing care and the people who know best what the person needs in their life and can be part of that assessment process. So this is the process of applying for self-directed support. The first step would be going to your local social work office, and they should provide anyone inquiring about self-directed support with information that is accessible to them and understandable to them. So there might be adjustments needed around for that. What should also happen at the same time is people should be made aware if there's any organisations locally who help with the process of applying for self-directed support. And I will give some information on that later. Again, it can be different in different places. So that might be some research around who could support you with that, who can help you think about what might be some of the things that you could apply for, and also which option might suit you best. So the first step, and this may take some time to get to an assessment because of course lots of people might apply, you might be waiting in a queue, so it won't be a quick process. There will be an assessment by a professional within the social work office to check that people are eligible. And the criteria for that, the set of standards that people are measured against, is different in each local authority, but you should be told what that is so that you know whether or not you're fitting against it. Then there'll be conversations about what you need and what you want to achieve in your life through accessing self-directed support. And then there might be a process of negotiating with the professionals involved in assessing. And some of that might involve really getting them to understand what is ME and how does it impact you. And this is the reason why you need the particular things that you're looking for. So that will take time again, because we need to let people know what it is we need in our life. And then there will be a bit of time looking at how do they plan that support. And again, this might involve negotiation, depending on what the local authority is and how they operate. So people should have some conversations around what is available in their local area to suit their particular outcomes that they're looking to achieve, which might involve being involved in the community, having a social life, needing support at home, needing support for employment. So looking at, in our area, what choices are available to you, what options would you be able to choose? Another thing that the assessment process will be looking at is the risks. If people want to take a particular course of action or they want to access something, how can these risks be managed? But that should be balanced against someone getting the outcomes that they want in their life, and then the resources that are available. And then coming towards the end of the assessment process, it will be approval of the plan and a budget involved for what has been selected. So each local authority has a duty of care to ensure that support meets people's needs, so that people, if they have a critical risk of something going wrong, if they don't have support, then they really should be having their needs addressed. So if you go through the process and then you're told that you're not getting self-directed support, that should be explained to you why and why you're not eligible. If you're told that you're not eligible for self-directed support, then you should be told what other options might be available in your community. There might be more things out there that you maybe aren't aware of, which the social work office is aware of. You should also be given the information about how you complain about the process of applying if you think that something has gone wrong and you maybe haven't got a fair and equal chance to apply and go through the process, and you think that you have a case to have maybe another reassessment. Through the process, you should also be told what budget you have for each option, and that's called the relevant amount. And this will be given to you once you've met the criteria that shows that you're eligible to apply for self-directed support in the particular area that you're wanting to apply. So for self-directed support, some of the aim is making it more personal for people rather than saying this is what we have for social care. So there's 4 different options offered so that people can suit their circumstances, their needs, and their capacity to manage. So the first one is a direct payment, which means that the person gets paid directly, the money comes into their bank account, or potentially there could be another third party to receive the money. But this means that then they purchase their own support. So that means that they are taking on the work of finding the support if they're employing someone, acting as an employer. So there is more admin and more capacity needed for this support, although it does give people the direct choice in choosing what they want. Option 2, the person chooses their own support, but the local authority or another organisation like a brokerage or some other third sector organisation holds the money for the person and they arrange the support on their behalf. And the third option is more like what happened in the past. The local authority selects and arranges the support. And then option 4 is giving people a choice to combine different aspects of the other 3 options so that they can arrange the support that meets their needs. That might take a bit of time, creativity for people to think through what would work. So a key thing for people to know is that if you apply for self-directed support, it doesn't affect your other benefits. So it wouldn't change the amount of money that people get to live on. The money that comes through self-directed support is to be used to pay for support that people need from day to day to live well and be independent. And so this is some of the things, and I'll go into more detail shortly about what self-directed support can be used for. Personal assistant, and I'll talk more about that shortly. It could pay for specialist therapy input if someone wants an occupational therapist or a physio or something else that would work for them. Maybe some potential equipment, and this might not need to be related to health. This might be if someone would like to cycle or they would like some particular form of mobility equipment or something that would get them out and about in the community, what would work for that, or adaptations needed in the home or elsewhere. Or it might be things that people want to do out in the community. It might be someone trying to get education, follow their interests, something that would make their life better, opportunities to socialise with other people in the community that the people might want to be using self-directed support for. So here's some more detail on that. So people might want to employ a personal assistant. And a personal assistant is a paid role, and it's people who can provide personal help around the home. They can help people to get out and socialise and meet other people. And they can help around the home with everyday tasks so that people can remain independent in the home and live the best way that they can. It might mean you get self-directed support to buy a service from a provider. And this could be something already within the local authority that the council have. Maybe another local authority, as there might be nothing suitable in your area. Or it might be another voluntary or private organisation that is able to offer a service or some form of support which would suit the person. It might mean getting away for a short break, and that might be going somewhere where family members could join and offer the carer a break while they all have a holiday together, or it might be an alternative arrangement where people have a break from one another. And that's some of the things that need to be discussed. What do people want and what would work for this particular person in accessing this support? Some equipment, and that might not need to be related to health. It might be if people want to pursue an interest, maybe it could be a laptop or something. As long as the person could demonstrate, these are the outcomes I want to pursue, this will make my life better, this is what I'd like to use the money for. Some adaptations around your home. Support for people to attend activities, things that improve their education, help them to access or remain in employment, and anything else which will help to meet the supported person's outcomes in the support plan. So again, we can't cover everything in this session. I know it's a very quick overview. So there is an organisation, Self-Directed Support Scotland, and they have a website and it's got lots of useful information. If somebody is thinking of employing a personal assistant, then they have a handbook for anybody considering to do that. And they also have a handbook for any personal assistants that people want to employ. They also have a section on their website where people can search for organisations in your local area that may be able to provide support to people wanting to apply for self-directed support. Similar to that is Support in the Right Direction. This organisation on their website offers information and support for people thinking about applying. It's some of the areas that you could go and research and look at what you need to consider and think about, and what are the things that are involved in applying for self-directed support. And I've also put in the advocacy guideline that the Scottish Independent Advocacy Alliance has for any advocates who are in a role of supporting people for applying for self-directed support. It might be useful to dip into that and look at some of the things that professional advocates would be considering. I've also included the practitioner's guide for people working in social work, because one of the difficulties with self-directed supports is making sure that the professionals know the ins and outs of it so that they can support people to do that well. So if people want to have a read at that, I've just included these guidelines too. So these are some of the organisations that Self-Directed Support Scotland may signpost people to, and these might be very useful if people are hesitant about applying, or you've got a limited capacity in terms of your energy to take on the admin and navigate that. It might be useful to consider if there's a local organisation that you could get to support you to do it, explain how it works, and to do some of the legwork. So there is a community brokerage network, and there might be a way of searching here to get organisations in your local area. I've put down some of the organisations working in different areas. There might also be help that you can get from either an independent living or an inclusive centre or other disability organisations like Glasgow Disability Alliance. If people are thinking about, what services or support could I get in my local area? What is it that I could use self-directed support for? Who else is out there who could help me? There's a couple of organisations that can be used to search in your local area by postcode for what services are there. One is access to local information for self-support. Alice, I've got it at the bottom of this page. So you click into that, you put your postcode in, you can filter information and look for organisations that are in your area. So it might be considering, well, what services are there, what groups might I want to attend. The other organisation is Advice Local, and again, when you click on the website, you put your postcode in and it gives you all sorts of advice organisations that might be in your local area that might be useful for you to start talking to about looking at how do I apply for self-directed support, or how do I advocate on my own behalf, who else is out there to support me, and where do I get information on my legal rights and what I'm entitled to. What I would also recommend people to do is, if you're able to get out, is to contact your local library, because librarians often have a really good understanding of what services and support are in the area. And if they don't have that understanding, then a librarian can make sure they can do some research and find out for you, or signpost you to someone else who might be able to support with this. So I'm going to move on to the carers bit, and I'm just wanting to check in that people are okay, that it's not too much information too fast. And if there's anything people want to ask now, because we've got plenty of time. So just to give people clarity about what is considered a carer, it's if you offer support to people, but not if it's just because they're a young child and they need that kind of support anyway. And if it's a paid role, if it's a personal assistant, or it could be someone coming in a volunteer role to give support in a voluntary capacity, then these people aren't considered carers. An unpaid carer can be caring for more than one person, and someone who's been cared for can have more than one carer. They don't need to live in the same house, and they might not even be in the same area. So many times people don't consider themselves a carer because they just think it's part and parcel of their life, and they see it as just being part of a family or a friend. But there is a value in being seen as an unpaid carer, because you do have some rights in the legislation in the Carers Act, which give people support to continue in this role and make sure that they can manage their own health and well-being as well as looking after the cared for person. So the Carers Act gives people the right to access their own support plan. And if it's a young carer, they can get a statement. So this can be carried out by the local authority, or you could have help from your local carer centre, and I'll speak more about carer centres in a minute. So carers should be involved in any assessment of their own support needs, because carers need to be supported so that they can support other people. So it's checking if they can access support if they meet the local criteria and are eligible, and that people have the information and advice they need to support them to do their role. Maybe they need to know about what benefits they can apply for, what other support they can get to maintain their role as a carer. And it's also important that carers are involved in the assessment of any support for the person they're caring for, so that they know what's happening and they can let people know about their needs and anything that's involved. And of course, another key thing is when people are being discharged from hospital, carers should be involved in the planning of that, because there might be information that they have that the discharge team are not aware of and should consider before a hospital discharge is planned. So some of the things that carers have are included in the Carers Charter, and I have that information there. So carers are also entitled to get self-directed support for themselves, even if the person that they support already has their own self-directed support budget, or if the carer lives in a different area. So if the carer meets the local eligibility criteria, they could get their own budget, and that could be used for organising respite so that they can have a break from caring. Or it could be used for them to access or buy or access something that supports their own health and well-being. And that could be very individual. So that's something that carers can do for themselves so that they can ensure they can carry on caring. So we have a booklet for carers, caring for someone with ME, because ME has so much stigma and discrimination. A lot of the times it does put a burden on the person who's caring for it, because they are also experiencing the discrimination and stigma too. So we have our information and support helpline, so carers can call into that too. So don't hesitate and seek support if you need it. There also is an awful lot of really useful information for any carers on the Coalition of Carers website. There's all sorts of information that people can access about caring and what support might be useful for you in your local area. The Neurological Alliance also has a leaflet for anyone new to caring for someone with a neurological condition, which ME is. And I think the Care Information Scotland website has lots and lots of information, both for carers and for people living with a health condition. And not everyone can access a website. So they also have a helpline which people can call 9 to 5 during the week. So one of the things that supports carers in each area is their carer centre. And these should provide information and advice about the rights which are set. Yep. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, there's another question just about carers assessments. Separate thing for a carers assessment. I think for a carers assessment, you would need to get your own assessment. I'm not 100% sure in that, but I don't think that when people are being assessed for self-directed support or someone is being assessed for care, I think a carer's assessment will be right, but I'm not 100% clear on that because I didn't go in and look at that, I'm afraid. But what I can do is check that out. It might be different in different areas, but I think a carer's assessment would be separate from a person's assessment, although both people might be involved in both. And just something in the chat, August have. Can't see the questions. Yeah, Fiona, you're not probably able to see the question and answers. So we can share that later on. I think this happened the last time and people wanted to know what the questions were asked and what the answers. So we'll do our best to capture that and feedback to people later on if you can't see it. Is there anything else that people want to say at this moment before I move on? So some of the things that carer centres can help with is making sure that people know about their rights and what is set out in the Charter. And also making sure that they're applying for all the benefits that they might be entitled to. Nikki, you've still got your hand up. Is there anything else? So, because there is carers benefits, there might be other things that people don't know about that they're entitled to apply for. So that's something that you should be able to get from your local carer centre. If the carer has their own health issues, then that's something that should be considered in the assessment, because then you would need support to manage your own health as well as supporting the person you're caring for. So some of the things that carers centres do is provide education and training for carers, and some of that can be around stress management, some of the things that are involved in caring for someone else, and probably they should listen to the people who are coming along to the centre and provide what works for the people that what people need. So there should be a training programme and support going on at the carer centres, providing information and advice around what is needed. And then they provide advocacy, and an advocate is someone who speaks up on your behalf when people don't feel able. And this is, Nikki's very familiar with this role. Nikki, do you want to say a bit more about what advocacy would be for a carer if they got that at the carer centre? Yes, if you had a particular issue or problem, or a professional wasn't listening to your point of view, or you weren't getting anywhere, you could go to an advocate and they really help you get your voice heard. And they might know things like points of law or things about, say, discrimination or disability acts, equality acts, all those things. They'll be able to point you
the right direction. They can attend meetings with you or write letters for you and with you. It's always in consultation with you and support you that way. It just helps sometimes just to have that extra person to help you get your point listened to.
Thank you, Nikki. So just as someone said, carers can have their own health conditions too. So there should be some way of people needing, so we've got somebody, Kirsty, who is working at Dumfries Carer Centre, and Kirsty said carers need a completed adult carer support plan to help evidence the need for respite. And Dumfries Carer Centre help people complete these plans and send it to social work and help them provide a budget. So thank you very much, Kirsty, for offering that. So it's making sure that people know about what's available in their local area and that they have support to do that. So people, as someone raised, carers have their own needs for managing their health and well-being. They're a person in themselves. So sometimes carer centres will provide counselling, because of course there is an emotional load, because things might change, the relationship might change, people's identity might change, and that's for the cared for person. They might have had a very active role, along with the carer might have a very active role, and then when someone becomes unwell, the whole family has to adjust around that, and so that can be difficult and does take a lot of work and negotiation. So that would be great if people could get counselling. And of course, bereavement support, because carers' lives can be built around the person they're caring for. So the loss of that and that particular role and the person and grieving for that person that you've lost is something that carer centres can provide support with. And a crucial thing that people might need is planning for an emergency. If a carer does become unwell, if someone broke their leg or an arm and could no longer carry on in the role that they had, it's making sure that people can anticipate some of that happening and who else might help, where else might someone need to go for respite, and planning for the future, because things don't stay the same. People's health change. Things need to be considered. If people need more support, potentially they might need less support. They might want to plan for different things they're taking on in their life. So carer centres can give help around that. So thank you very much for listening. We've completed it in less than an hour. So if there's any questions that people have, we will do our best to answer them in the remaining time. So Fiona has shared carers, yes, another postcode lottery separate to carer centre, and it's very difficult to get professionals with an understanding of ME. Also, Fiona has very helpfully shared the anticipatory care toolkit, which people could use to have emergency planning. So thank you very much for sharing that information. We will share that with everyone who's come along today and the people who are coming to the recording afterwards. So we'll just have a look at the question and answer and see if there's anything else we can add here. So a trusted source setting out legal rights on the basis of determining financial contributions. Nikki, can you think of something for that on the financial contributions thing? We need to have a think about that. I suppose we need to know more about the context and what that is determining financial. I mean, there is some organisations that we post people to, the Disability Rights and Equality and Advisory Service, so we can put these links in when we send out the recording in case people can access that. So the type of supports, shared some of that in the presentation, so it would be thinking about, you know, what is it your needs are, what would support you, what do you want to address, and maybe having some conversations with that. And that's where looking for other third sector organisations through Alice or Advice Local might be useful, that you get someone else to chat about what could I use self-directed support. There is the brokerage or organisations or someone in your local community who you could discuss this with. And in areas like Lanarkshire, there is In Control, there is other ones. If you do a bit of research, there is organisations who can help you think about what you could use self-directed support to do. You can use, I think in the Advocacy guide by the Scottish Independent, they've got some case studies of what other people have used it for, and that might start people thinking about what would be working for you. And Kirsty shared about the thingy, so if the carer has their own health issues, I think that is definitely somewhere you could be looking at applying for self-directed support, because then you could meet the criteria for needing that support for yourself to manage your own health and well-being, so that you can continue in this important role of caring for someone else. So I think we've come to the end. If there's no more questions, or if there's anything that anybody wants to share which they think might support another participant, that'd be great. So Fiona's just sharing that self-directed, the framework of standards, which give a clear list of standards that people complain about. And thank you very much, Fiona. We will include that standards in the email out to people. Is there anything more that people want to share before we wrap up, or is there any other questions that people have now that we can, if we can't answer them now, we will try our best to come back to? Anything that you want to add, Nikki, at this point?
Sorry, I've been having problems with one of my buttons. No, I don't think there's nothing I want to add, thank you, but I have captured everything, all the questions and all the chat things on a document, so we won't lose anything. Oh, Fiona's given us a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fiona.
Contact self-directed support and join the collective, which is on Facebook, and it gives people an idea of what is good practice and how to access. So it's not all about budget, so it is about achieving people's outcomes, because sometimes the outcomes might be achieved without money. It might just be letting people know there's a service you could go to, or something that people might not know about. Is there anything else you want to share around it not just being a budget, Fiona, while we're here, in case there is something that we haven't thought about? Provision of advice and guidance, yeah. What is best to have? Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing that, Fiona. So it should be that conversation and negotiation around what is right for you, what support do you need, because that support might not have a cost attached to it. It might be something that's already freely available, but you just don't know about it, or the people supporting you don't know about it. So organisations such as social work, brokerage, other third sector organisations should have a good idea of what's happening in your local area that might meet your personal outcomes and what works for you. Hopes, dreams, aspirations and wishes. That sounds very much like what people come to advocacy for is, yes, In Control. We'll send on the In Control organisation website address too. I just couldn't get everything into the slides. I didn't want to make it too busy. So it is thinking about independent living fund. Yes, so young people between 16 and 25 can also apply to the independent living fund in Scotland to help them access money to support with that transition from being a young person to adult life. Thank you very much, Fiona. You've been a font of knowledge. So I'm just about going to bring it to a close, unless there's anything else that anybody wants to ask or offer now. I'm been really pleased that people have been able to offer us so much information, because there is only so much we can find out in advance. Thank you very much, Kirsty and Fiona. Yes, the NICE guideline, and within Scotland, the NICE guideline does apply, but of course the model is referring people to specialist service, but there is a lot of information in the NICE guideline. There is also a really useful leaflet that is coming out for World ME Day from the World ME Alliance, which can be shared with professionals and which has been promoted on social media at the moment. So it's just about accessing all the different things that you need to support yourself. And some of the advice in the NICE guideline can be very useful to share with professionals. Yes, it is probably a session in its own right. I think at the moment what is being developed with a collaboration of different charities is to provide a passport for people going into hospital, because if you are severely affected, there's all sorts of sensory difficulties, difficulties around medication and things that people need to consider. So that is being worked on, and people who are severely affected, of course, need to have much more information to give to other people so they're aware of the difficulties. That is the comprehensive list of services as being addressed just now. The Clinical Priorities Unit in Scotland are actually asking each health board to let them know what support and services they provide to people with ME. So we're hoping that will come out May, June. We're just checking with them just now how that assessment is coming along and when they can share that information with us. So once we have the results of that assessment, we will have a picture of what is available in Scotland at the moment to support people to manage ME. Where do they refer people? Because there isn't a clear pathway, as Fiona has said. So we do have our Learn About ME project, which has information for any health professional, and there is a webinar for social care professionals. So we can share that as well. There is a module that a GP consultant can take. It takes less than an hour, it's free, it's online, and that gives lots of information on ME and what adjustments people might need to take into consideration. We also now have 8 podcasts, one for nursing, one's for physiotherapists, just some general information. The latest one, which we are going to record soon, is on GP prescribing. Some of the things that GPs might need to consider when they are prescribing for different symptoms, and that might be start low with the medication and proceed very slowly so that we can see any impacts in people's health. So there are stuff out there. It's just keeping it in mind and raising awareness and doing our best to let other people know what people with ME need. So thank you very much for coming along today and sharing so much information. Yes, it's clear about getting the diagnosis. That's a real first step to getting support from social care and education services, getting the adjustments that young people need. Yep, definitely. Lots of information within that module about how people can be more confident in diagnosing ME, so that's a good thing to signpost any GP to. Of course, we can't make them take the module, but it is an easy win for them. Yes, Joanne, I'm sorry to hear that it's dire and that things are so difficult for you. It's hard to say that you're not alone with that. It's just a difficult thing for people just not to accept and understand and dismiss people's experiences and needs. It really is truly awful. And we are doing the best we can to address that. So I think that's maybe everything we've got at the moment. So I just want to say Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along. Yes, yes. Well, we do need to be light if we're going to be sharing this recording. So, yes. Thank you very much, Joanne. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming along and sharing so much knowledge and understanding with us. Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you, Fiona. And we will see you again. Thanks for coming along today. Bye-bye.
Bye.